Alrighty. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Grace Nerd or the Grace Nerd Podcast or whatever you want to call it. I didn't feel like doing a bunch of editing tonight, so I'm just going to do this live. We'll see if I'm ready for it. I don't know. And we'll see how many people show up. Um, but we're going to be, let me just go ahead and get my chat open on my phone to make this easy. Let's see here. But anyways, yeah, we're going to be talking about the controversy again with Steven Crowder and the Daily Wire, which I thought I was done talking about at least for a while, but it looks like things are heating up again because Steven Crowder just released another video responding to Jeremy Boring's response to him, and I've already watched it. I'll say up front, I'm not going to pretend to be surprised by anything that we're about to see here, but I figure I'm going to do sort of a live reaction part by part to what was said here. And yeah, I'm not looking forward to this exactly because honestly, I'm a little more frustrated now than I was before. I'll give you another spoiler. I don't know what kind of people are going to watch this video. There's going to be Daily Wire fans. There's going to be Steven Crowder fans. But I'll be upfront with you. Steven Crowder has not changed my mind one iota, really at all. Based on he hasn't changed my opinion from what it was last night when I released my first video talking about this after Jeremy Boring's response. I'll catch you up if you haven't heard about the situation yet at all. But basically, Steven Crowder, he finished up his contract and did not renew it with the Blaze, and so we were waiting after his break for him to talk about where he'd land next, if he's starting his own platform, if he's joining another platform, what he's doing, and he came out and basically announced an initiative called Stop the Big Con, which is a play on words because big con is what people often call big conservatism. And he's basically initially, he was accusing an unnamed conservative media company of basically taking advantage, at the very least, of their employees or of their creators. Or maybe not necessarily taking advantage of them, but basically working arm in arm with big tech and penalizing them if they lose their ad revenue on a major platform like YouTube. And people started speculating maybe he was talking about the Daily Wire. And then the next day, Jeremy Boring came out and he said, yes, this was us. We did present this contract to him where he was reading these things off. And like I said in my last video, I think Jeremy Boring did a good job justifying why they've built their business model the way they have. And this is a major point I'm going to keep returning to as we go through this. Again, I've already watched it. Major thing I pointed out in the video, and I think this is where the most salient point Jeremy Boring made, was that Steven Crowder is criticizing them for kind of operating under some of the same principles that he invented. Okay, and this is what's frustrating me a lot about both Steven Crowder's behavior here and his most loyal fans. Like, I'm someone who generally has many times has enjoyed Steven Crowder's content. I'm not here to say that I hope he ultimately fails in his future plans. I'm not saying any of that, but I felt he was wrong last night after looking at both sides as best I could. I expressed as much. Now he's come out and he has recorded. He is revealing that he recorded this final phone conversation he had with Jeremy Boring, which says a lot about kind of where he's at with all this. He's kind of on a crusade, and like, if you really think something is revealed in this phone conversation that really sort of proves something against the Daily Wire and proves something against Jeremy Boring, then I kind of in hindsight you can say, well, yeah, then the recording of the phone call was justified. But I don't think anything is proven by this phone call, and therefore, like, it really just demonstrates kind of I think a problem in the way Steven Crowder is treating his friends here. It's very bad faith. And so we're gonna walk through this here, and I will say Steven Crowder is really good at amping up the drama. So let's go ahead. You can tell I'm a little frustrated here, and not everyone's going to agree with me. A lot of this, what's frustrating here is that, stepping back, looking at this objectively, if this all blows over, I think I will look back at this as a difference in opinion between two different philosophies. in terms of creators, in how much we act strategically, and when we begin to decide that acting strategically is a compromise of principle. Okay, I'm willing to see that argued out here, but I don't think I don't think it's as clear cut as now Steven Crowder's most loyal fans want it to be. Okay, and he's put his viewers in a position now where if you want to feel like a truly loyal follower of Steven Crowder, you have to assume, you feel obligated to assume that there are nefarious and hidden motives on the part of people like Jeremy Boring and people at the Daily Wire. Like, and if you disagree with that, you're not loyal enough. Okay. This is the kind of stuff that tears movements apart. All right. I don't want that to happen. I want these guys to end up united in the end, but I'm not on Steven Crowder's side on this one. Just not. So let me jump over here. We're going to start watching it. I'll try to comment as we go, but I've stated what I think for the most part already, but I want to fill it in as I can, because Steven, he structured this video for for maximum effectiveness. And I'll show you what I mean. Because he starts with, well, he says, I didn't want to do this. Basically saying, like, I didn't want to expose these problems, but here we go. Let me make sure the sound is working. It might not be.
They don't get deals that...
They can be wage slaves for a little bit, come over and make a salary and grow their brand.
All right. So there's the first little quote there. Where Jeremy Boring is saying, basically talking about smaller creators coming in, they got to come in and be wage slaves for a little while and build their brand. Right now, I'm already seeing comments on my. I should turn this down a little bit because it's a little louder than me. I've already seen in the comments on my previous video of people who have watched this video, and they're saying, "Look, he called them wage slaves." All right. Let me point something out here. I'll say this right off the bat. This is so obvious to me, and maybe it's not obvious to you. Maybe I should explain it, but like, this is obviously facetious. Okay. Maybe you don't know this, but the term wage slavery is a Marxist term. Okay. It's basically what Marxists philosophically will say about people who, have employees. I mean, like, it's often the accusation lobbied towards successful businesses that supposedly don't pay their people enough. It's this concept of wage slavery where it's trying to make capitalism look more evil than it is. And like, I'm not saying there's no such thing as mistreatment of workers, but the point is that vocabulary comes from an overall critique of capitalism. Okay. And Jeremy Boring knows that. And he knows that publicly. He said he just said it in the previous video. He says that he doesn't pay people more than he has to, and he demands hard work. Okay, and he knows people of a very far left bent are going to say, "Well, that's wage slavery." So he's it's obvious to me he's being facetious here and just sort of taking ownership of that accusation, like not admitting to it, but basically saying like, "They're going to call me a wage. They're going to call me someone who practices wage slavery." So like. It's obvious all he means is like you have to come in and you're not going to get paid an insane amount coming in as a small creator. You got to work your way up. Call me a wage slaver if you want, but so that's obviously what he's doing. It's facetious, and hopefully you can see that.
They can be wage slaves for a little bit. They can be wage slaves for a little bit.
And the fact that this is what bothers me so much, is like, that seems obvious to me. Thing is, like, Steven Crowder rejects these Marxist concepts, but he's playing to that emotion. I hate that. It's a little bit disingenuous.
God bless the talk boy. Those things are worth like $5,000 now. It's an expensive gag. So didn't want to have to do this, but
you planned it.
Daily Wire outed themselves very, very quickly.
All right, so he just said the Daily Wire outed themselves very, very quickly. Again, that term outed themselves, like it, again, this is like a very strategic vocabulary he's using, very strategic presentation. He's basically saying, they outed themselves because they were ashamed. Like that's what that provokes. If you felt that emotion was being communicated in Jeremy Boring's video. Like, okay, I didn't see it. He basically explained when Steven Crowder released his first video, it automatically, naturally caused a lot of suspicion about the Daily Wire. People in his company were upset. And so he wanted to come out and just be transparent. Like, I don't want to sit here and sound like I'm just, just rooting for the Daily Wire, like, relentlessly and unquestioningly, but I'm sorry. I don't see this the way he does. Okay. And I've criticized the Daily Wire in other videos, if you're unaware. Just look at my back catalog. But anyways.
Sure enough, if you see all of the people who work there, some of whom I have relationships with, they immediately tried to make this all about money. Here's the problem. There are a few problems, and I'll go through with some receipts. Everything that was said about negotiations, how they transpired, beyond the numerical value, which is true and I'll get to, everything else is untrue. I don't really want to get into that. It's completely irrelevant. Here's why. Go back to the 20-something minute video, 30-minute video. You've never heard me say or write anywhere online that these offers weren't paying enough money. Why?
Right. He did not say that in his initial video. I don't remember that. And I have watched his first video all the way through. Some people think I didn't, I guess. But, right. Here's something that I'll say this right now. It might fit better later, but there's some points in here where it's like he needs to get more specific in his accusations of dishonesty toward the Daily Wire here and toward Jeremy Boring, because Jeremy Boring made a couple pretty specific claims about the phone call, okay, or about, I don't know if it was during the phone call he recorded or another conversation, but Jeremy Boring said, like, eventually, there was like a bare minimum amount that I guess Steven's agent came and that's what they based the initial contract on. And then Steven Crowder rejected it, pointed out some of the problems he had in this phone call. But somewhere in there, Jeremy Boring did say that Steven Crowder did come back with another number that was much higher, like 30 million a year, I think. Not going to say whether that's fair or unfair. I don't care. But that either was said by Steven Crowder or it wasn't. All right. I'm not saying he said it in the video. He's pointing out here, look, I never said anything about that in the first video. No, you didn't. But either you said that to Jeremy Boring or you didn't. Are you saying that's dishonest? You got to be specific about that. He doesn't respond to that claim by Jeremy Boring. When you don't respond to something that specific, I suspect it's true. I really do. Okay.
Because it's not about the money. It's kind of unreal to me that the only thing these people can still talk about is the money. The conversation was about conservatism, the movement, and big tech. They keep talking about money. I'm talking about a country. I'm talking about a movement. I'm talking about making a difference.
Okay, and that's all great and swell and everything. I've heard the same thing from Jeremy Boring and people at the Daily Wire. Anybody can spout platitudes. Okay? I've heard platitudes from Jeremy Boring. I've heard platitudes from the Daily Wire about what their convictions are, and I'm hearing platitudes now. I don't care. Okay? You got to back it up a little bit more than this. Okay? I have a little more to say about that.
It's not about the money, and Jeremy and the Daily Wire know that. How do I know they know that? Because after, according to what he said, I walked away from the offer. I did place one more call to the Daily Wire.
And from what I can tell, it was a very strategic call. I mean, he recorded it. This was obviously part of, he must have been thinking about launching his own platform or whatever he's planning on doing here. This was obviously part of the plan. And he was planning on framing this a certain way. This is something he's a master at, not a criticism. He's great at framing a narrative and then fitting the pieces that he needs into that narrative to bolster it. Okay, that can be done in an honest way and it can be done in a dishonest way. I'm not saying he's always done it in a dishonest way, but he's using that skill here. And you need to see it for what it is. Okay.
And I made it very, very clear that it wasn't about money. That was not the topic of conversation. There was...
that final phone conversation was his tone, the subject matter, was strategic because he was recording it. Okay.
Hero, as they've tried to portray this, miscommunication. It was one last call where the only thing that I asked for, my only demand, was their word, and not even for me, but for other people coming up facing these kinds of contracts.
Right, which he's going to play part of the contract, but, well, let's just let him play it.
Let's say it's a kid who comes in with 500,000 YouTube subscribers or something like that, 100,000. Let's say it's some other kid you're paying six figures to come in and do it. There's not the penalty of the demonetization or if they're removed from iTunes, Apple, YouTube.
Yeah, sure there would be.
Yeah, sure there would be. All right, so we know he doesn't like those penalizations. Established. We got it. That was his main complaint in the last video. Jeremy Boring gave his explanation as to why he felt those penalties were justifiable. And why they should share the brunt of the consequence of being demonetized or being boycotted or something like that. Okay? It's a difference of opinion. You're allowed to side with Crowder on this, or you're allowed to side with the Daily Wire on this. I personally think Jeremy Boring made a better case that this is a reasonable thing to involve in a contract. Okay? He's emphasizing here, this was my only problem. Like, yeah, but now you have to rebut Jeremy Boring's, you have to rebut his rebuttal, right? And so he's just reestablishing that this was the disagreement they had. He's not resolving why he's right yet, really.
And here's something else. I was also very measured. I was painstakingly clear in taking myself off the table because it wasn't going to be a right fit. That happens in business all the time.
Again, in the recorded conversation, which you knew was being recorded for future use, you were very measured. Okay, so what? Okay.
But that we weren't talking about me. We were talking about the futures of other people who could potentially be in that position, that very disconcerting position.
And again, there's sort of like, this was something he did. And again, he's not addressing the fact that he did this. This is something that you need to, boy, he's, like I said, he's framing a narrative here and he's addressing what he wants to address in the most emotionally effective way possible. But I would say there is a legitimate list of things that Jeremy Boring said, pointing out problems with the initial video that Steven Crowder does not respond to in this video. Okay. He points out that Steven Crowder, said like, look, what if I get injured and like, what are these penalties going to mean? Like if I get injured and can't deliver an episode, what about like being sick or with a disability? Like that's an unfair part of this contract. Then Jeremy Boring turns the page and goes, no, look, there's provisions for that. Okay. That was at best, an oversight on Steven Crowder's part. At worst, it was kind of a lie of omission. Okay. He doesn't address that in this video. He owes an explanation for that kind of oversight. I don't know. Okay, but he's making this about what he wants to make it about. Here we go.
Miscommunication.
What I'm talking about is you're describing a model for everyone, not just let's get rid of me.
The point I was going to make, he's talking about the model of being penalized, even smaller creators being penalized. He talked about the size of these fees, but without the context of the amount that was offered to him. Okay, he's talking a little bit more about it now in this video, but he didn't talk about it then, and it made the fees to someone who's not necessarily thinking about context, it makes the fees sound astronomical and insane, right? But he's also leaving out what those kind of fees would mean for a smaller creator who comes in who's not being offered as much as Steven Crowder. This is a percentage of what is offered. Okay, so if they were treated with the same percentage, it's not as astronomical. Okay, but he's not, he's not making that differentiation or being precise in his wording. So he's making it feel like, wow, what if they do to them what they almost did to me? Which what was done to him was not that bad in context of the amount. And so then take that and then sort of compound that emotion on top that he's provoking on when you have the thought of that being done to a younger creator. Again, it's it's emotionally provocative, but is it fair? Or is it like he's choosing his words carefully to bolster this narrative?
Here, everyone, if there's a penalty for being demonetized on YouTube, because your business model requires that be a huge component of it, you need to change your business model or this movement cannot work, Jeremy. I can't imagine my show trying to come up and be beholden to YouTube advertiser guidelines, let alone, I mean, honestly, being beholden from a conservative entity with hard strikes, right? Being removed, but let alone being advertiser friendly. We know how broad those guidelines are. They might as well just read, don't say anything offensive, and they change them at the drop of a hat.
I'm not
All right. Yeah.
suggesting that the guidelines aren't terrible. I'm suggesting that if making money off of those platforms is part of how you're justifying the salary you're paying someone, then or the fee I keep saying salary, the fee you're paying someone, then when those go away, everybody loses money. You can't pay the same amount with less revenue.
How about you create a different business model?
Okay. And now here's where Jeremy hit his hardest, I think, in his first response. He basically said, look, I'm sorry, but Steven Crowder has not built an entire platform himself at this point. Mug Club was part of the Blaze. Okay. He did not build the Blaze. Okay. And so he's saying, look, Jeremy, why don't you come up with a different business model? Okay, I'm sorry, but he hasn't rebutted Jeremy's point that how is he qualified to tell Jeremy to come up with a different business model? I mean, is he's sort of, getting, has sort of a rallying cry going now for the Stop the Big Con thing, probably to start his own platform. And I'm going to think that Jeremy was speaking in good faith and being honest when he said he hopes Steven Crowder succeeds in that endeavor. I hope he does. Like, ideologically, I want him to further, my conservative worldview. I want to see that succeed. I want to see him succeed. I want to see the Daily Wire succeed. But that was the first half of a point, but I'll probably finish it when it comes back to mind, but we'll continue here.
Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Of course, telling someone else, hey, change your business model. I get it. I'm in no position to say that unless instead of Monday morning quarterbacking it, here's the thing. I didn't just offer criticisms. I offered a guide on how to, here's the deal. I want to sit at the table with people who, granted, have an immense amount of power and have incredibly deep pockets. That is all true.
Okay, so he's saying he offered a guide. I remember this now. So that's another part of the phone call, the recorded phone call, I guess, that he's not showing us. Because what he needs to demonstrate at this point is that he explained to Jeremy Boring, look, here's the model, and here's reasons why you should think it should work. Either because I explain it so well that it's compelling, or I did it before and it's something you can replicate. Okay. And so he'd have to show that part of the phone conversation and show Jeremy Boring just being stubborn in light of profound evidence. That's not part of this video. That doesn't happen in what he shows, at least. Spoiler alert.
Clear. And by the way, it's something that I want to have on our side of the aisle. But I offered a guide on how to do it. It is incumbent, this is what this is about. It is incumbent upon conservatives, if we believe what we say, to uncouple, to divest, if you want to use that term, from big tech.
All right. And if you want to because he's set up this initiative with this kind of aggression, if you want to demonstrate your loyalty now to Steven Crowder, you are now obligated to disbelieve Jeremy Boring when he said that is his long-term goal. He's claimed that, like, for now, their business model in part incorporates YouTube ad revenue. And long-term, they want their platforms to be powerful enough to divest from that. Okay, so Steven Crowder doesn't believe that? I mean, you don't have to believe that. You can question his motives. I think he's compromised and all that. What warrant do you have to believe that? It's this narrative, okay, which has not been justified in my opinion. Okay. And one of the reasons why this is, I think, again, the most, I think I said this at the beginning, the most salient point I think Jeremy Boring made was the principles he is using, Jeremy Boring is using in terms of being a little bit more PC on YouTube and then inviting people behind the paywall for more freedom of speech. That's a model Steven Crowder came up with. Okay. So, like, you can speak in all the platitudes you want in my comment sections defending Steven Crowder. This is the model he used to get to where he is. All right? And no, he has not demonstrated the ability to set up a platform at the level of the Daily Wire to the point where he can criticize them. And he hasn't shown this amazing guide and argument that he has that he supposedly explained to Jeremy Boring that Jeremy Boring, just rejected out of pride. Okay. That's the narrative he's creating here. Okay.
Right? For the business models of the movement as we move forward, to not rely on playing ball with Facebook and with YouTube. That is something that we have to move toward. You know that we've been trying to do that here for years. That's why.
And that's what Jeremy Boring says he's been doing as well, with some differences. In emphasis. And, but you're both saying you have the same goal. But you haven't demonstrated why his tactics are ultimately wrong. He's using tactics that you came up with.
Every single show, we say, hey, if you can watch on Rumble, please do so. We're not looking to be banned on YouTube, but we certainly won't compromise the truth in order to be advertiser friendly. Here's the thing, Daily Wire, Jeremy, and I really do hope that we can talk.
And again, now he's reiterating some reasonable things, but these are all reasonable things Jeremy Boring agreed with. Okay? The devil's in the details, and now you have to debunk what Jeremy Boring said based on the details of the contract and what is your actual better business model that lets you follow through with those convictions in a more pure way than you think Jeremy Boring is.
At some point, please, you can pick up the phone. We've done that. We here have found a way to make that work. For proof, see election night, our numbers on Rumble there, and see the numbers on Rumble when we get suspended from YouTube. I think it was 4 times this last year. And I went to great lengths to communicate that to the people at Daily Wire.
There can be no next me if the people at the top with the financial resources are doing the bidding. That's being the arm of big tech. What you just said is, well, we have to play ball with big tech if we want to make money. Well, I don't. Why don't you guys follow a model like I have and scale it? That's what I've been doing since 2014. You know that. I've been trying to make sure, which I thought we were all doing, that we can all flip the bird to Silicon Valley. This is saying we need him and you need to play ball.
And by the way, before some of you ask for this, look.
What it's saying is, yes, currently right now, YouTube ad revenue is part of the business model. He got into some big viewership numbers in terms of Rumble and YouTube. Well, he said, he was talking about when he was off YouTube was he off YouTube completely during election night? I'm trying to remember. But I mean, he cited some big numbers in terms of viewership, but like, he's not getting too detailed as to how these few examples justify an entire business model overhaul. Okay. Not from what I can see. If I'm just being dense, please let me know in the comments. I mean, hey.
There's always personal information on phone calls. And for the record, I've recorded 3 people on phone calls in my life. All 3 are involved with big tech. Just to be clear, the entire call transcript has been sent to others to verify without hopefully having to release the whole thing.
Okay. So is that sort of a veiled, like, look, all the proof that Jeremy Boring is being unreasonably stubborn here. Is all of that proof in, other parts of the phone call that I'd rather not show you. I mean, we'll see if there's something, again, I personally have not seen anything compelling here that he's exposing about this conversation, where what Jeremy Boring is saying to him in this recorded phone call is different from what he said in his hour-long rebuttal yesterday.
I'll be on Tim Pool's show, I believe, on Monday to talk about it. Now, this is something else that's been brought to my attention. That's interesting. Look, some people...
I'm actually missing Tim Pool live right now. He's got Candace Owens on giving her take. I'm very curious to see all of that. I'm definitely going to rewatch it after this. But it's interesting. I mean, Tim Pool doesn't see a bad guy in this situation. He said that. He did agree, look, I think there should be a different model going forward for conservatives, business-wise. He doesn't like these kinds of contracts, but he does see Jeremy Boring's side of it more than Steven Crowder does, I think. But he ultimately agrees, probably for Steven Crowder, it's not best for him to sign that contract. Okay. But he's much more, people call him a milquetoast fence sitter. I don't know. Here's Mr. Fly Fox Pro. Yeah, I am live. How we doing, guys? How you doing, Fly Fox Pro? Yep, I'm not on Steven Crowder's side of this one, I'll tell you that. You can watch I don't know if you watched my video already from last night, but nothing in this response from Crowder has changed my mind, really. Again, I like them both. I like Steven Crowder's accomplishments, and I like the Daily Wire's accomplishments. And I've given my opinion. I actually did a whole video on Daily Wire. You mentioned Jordan Peterson there. Yeah, I gave him some criticism about that. I don't put it into a broad narrative of them failing over time, but I think it poses potential problems, and Christians need to be wary of that. I've been very open about my issues with Daily Wire, but this ain't one of them. I'll be honest.
People have been sent out from Daily Wire and have gotten very personal. Obviously, when we released this video, we didn't name names, and I told you there are a lot of people in the space who have made offers, and it is true. There are quite a few, and there are some others that have been pretty similar to this. This isn't an incredibly unique scenario, but there have been some good people out there too, and we're still talking with them. So I do know that some people from Daily Wire have come out, maybe been instructed to. I have no idea. I don't care. And they've gotten very personal. I don't want to do that. At least I didn't want to.
I'm not privy to that yet.
But now it's sort of necessary for me to do so. So these are the only personal things I will say about the people at Daily Wire. Andrew Klavan is one of my favorite people of all time. He has an unbelievable skill to make you feel like the smartest guy in the room, even though I guarantee you he's smarter than you. There are very few people whose company I enjoy more than Andrew Klavan. Jordan Peterson is not only a friend, I would go to the wall for him. He's a guy who has changed the landscape of our country for the better.
I think Crowder likes
Can't say enough good things
Peterson
about him.
better
Ben
than you, Mr.
Shapiro
Fly
is
Fox.
possibly the smartest person I know. That's as personal as I'll get. Now, here's the thing. Only after that final call, after negotiations had followed through, pleading on the side of principle and knowing that it was completely met with deaf ears, did I come out like I did? See, here's the thing. They keep talking about a business.
Again, though, I don't buy this line of reasoning. His continually pointing back to this recorded final conversation ultimately doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things when it comes to him proving his motives, right? I'm not saying his motives are as bad as they could possibly be, or that it is all about the money for him. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying this phone call was recorded clearly with the plan of using it in this kind of context, right? So obviously he was calculated and focused on the most heroic motives, or demonstrating that he has the most heroic motives. All right. I'm not saying it's all a lie. I'm just saying you recorded the conversation strategically. So I don't care what you say, the reasons you say you worded things the way you did. All right. You had an agenda, I think, to spark this new venture, this new initiative.
Well, I walked away from the table because I'm talking about a country, about a movement. And this is the thing, the response that I've heard over the years, it's not just now. I've been doing this for a long time. You constantly hear, it's just business. It's just business. Well, guess
I
what?
have not heard that from Jeremy Boring, and this is the problem. Is again because he's done this in this way, where it's an initiative, it's got a catchphrase. Stop Big Con. If you want to be loyal to him, you are obligated to see these motives hidden by people like Jeremy Boring and people in the Daily Wire. You have to see it that way if you want to be loyal to him. Okay? There's no escaping it.
But it's not to me.
I haven't heard Jeremy Boring use that wording. It's just a business. It is a business, and Jeremy Boring has been realistic about that. And that's true for Steven Crowder as well. He's had to be very business savvy to get where he is. Doesn't mean it's just a business for him. But Jeremy Boring was realistic about the model, the business model they are using. Okay. They differ on it, but that doesn't make someone a villain here. And so, like I said, in terms of like which model you want to side with here, I don't see either of these guys as a villain. But I have a problem that now Steven Crowder has made it that you have to see Jeremy Boring as a villain. He's softening his words a little bit here to be a little more winsome from time to time, but that's ultimately what he's done.
Sure, I run a business, but it's not just business. And let me ask you, when have you ever heard someone say it's just business when they're doing the right thing?
And Jeremy Boring did not say that.
Ever hear someone give $250,000?
Again, I'm not going to defend him. Like, I've criticized him in previous videos. I've criticized the Daily Wire and Jeremy Boring in previous videos. But he's just not being accurate here. And so I'll defend them. Because just at root, at foundation, he's just wrong here.
To charity and say it's just business? And here's something that I would like to ask you, because I know that they've tried to play the identity politics and misrepresent the whole financial situation. But yeah, over the course of 4 or 5 years, the total operational budget, meaning 25, 30 employees, all of the costs, security, health insurance, would have been somewhere in the $50 million ballpark for that total operational budget. That is true. Okay. First off, I think it's a good thing for conservative companies out there to be generating or capable of generating far more than that. It'd be better than just Disney and just Netflix and just Hulu Plus. And I'd like the people who are in charge of that to be people who are willing to walk away from that if it comes with strings attached, with people who hate everything you stand for. So let's take that at face value, okay? I want you to ask yourself this question, okay? Put yourself in my shoes. What would it take? How much do your principles matter to you? What kind of a headspace would you have to be in to walk away full stop from $50 million? Let me ask you even further. What would it take for you to be willing to walk away from at least $50 million because of it causing harm to someone else that doesn't even affect you? But the next kid. I've talked about this, you have it in comedy. I'm never going to be the guy who pulls the ladder up after me. What motivates me is not money. Of course, everyone here likes nice things. They want to make a living. You've heard me say this many times. I want to pass the torch. I want there to be someone else to do this. It can't happen if this is how our movement is structured.
But that's how we got to where we are. That's how he got to where he is. He's in a position now to really start pushing for that detachment from big tech. He is. I hope he succeeds. I hope the Daily Wire succeeds. But he knows darn well he got to where he is now by playing ball with YouTube strategically. Again, I'm not criticizing him for it, but he's criticizing the Daily Wire for doing what they do when they got the idea from him. I'll keep going back to that. He's demonetized now. I know that. And so he doesn't censor himself on YouTube to protect ad revenue. He's already lost it, but he does still do it to not get banned. And then he funnels people over to Mug Club. It's a perfectly reasonable model because that's not to say YouTube won't still find a reason. Like YouTube will still find a reason to ban if they want to. But the point is, this funneling method of speaking broadly, saving certain more specific statements of your convictions to where you won't be banned for it. As long as you're not lying, I don't see an issue with that. Say, if you want to know my true opinion on this, come over here and I'll tell you. But I want to maintain my audience here and, say everything that I can here that I believe. If you want to know more, come over here. Like that's not dishonesty. You're being honest that you need to come over here to hear what I think. Okay. He did that to get where he is. The Daily Wire is doing that. Now he's criticizing the Daily Wire for doing that and having a business model that protects that. Okay. Because Christ will use it as his footstool. Yeah, I mean, I don't think in terms of the principle you're referring to there, Fly Fox Pro, I don't think I in principle ultimately disagree. I mean, I hope they succeed if they eventually center Christ. Like, eventually they will have to fail if that doesn't happen. I call them co-belligerents here. I think there's, again, I did a video called "Has the Daily Wire Gone Woke?" Maybe you've seen it, but I talk about this very dilemma of to what extent should conservative Christians who center Christ in their lives, to what extent should they partner or support a quasi-secular conservative media outlet, right? I expand on that a lot in that video, but it's not quite the point of this video. I'm trying to hash out this drama.
And you know that, by the way, this could do irreparable damage to the movement, the country, and the people who've fought so hard for the ground gained if we've decided to get in bed with these people who want to strip it away.
Again, which you did according to your own definition to get to where you are. And you have not demonstrated a clear and undeniable path forward to finally finish the job and fully divest, fully separate from these tech companies.
Asking, would you walk away? What would it take for you to walk away from $50 million? Because it's true. That's exactly what I did. It's exactly what I'm doing. And so long as these contracts out there include enforcement of big tech, of punishing conservative creators on behalf.
Again, he continues to use that vocabulary, which he used in the first video. Jeremy Boring gave his opinion as to why that's not helpful or accurate vocabulary, and how there's a very honest alternative way to frame that. He has not responded and given a reason why. First of all, that he didn't operate according to the same principles, and how he has not debunked that defense by Jeremy Boring.
Of the people we claim to fight, and the people who have long since demonetized us and can't stand me, and part of me doesn't blame them. As long as these contracts include that, not even for me, but the next person, I wouldn't take $1 billion. And certainly not if you understand in context, when behind closed doors, I know, and these people know, and acknowledge exactly what's being done to the next generation of creators.
Bench talent, young talent, they don't get deals like this.
So they don't get deals that...
They can be wage slaves for a little bit, come over and make a salary.
Yeah, and he's laughing. Now we get to the full context here of why he used the term wage slaves. It's a joke, poking fun at Marxist vocabulary. Duh. I hate that he used that in the beginning of the video as like, as sort of, I mean, it's not not clickbait. It wasn't in the thumbnail, but I would just mean like, he's playing to those emotions, but obviously that's not what Jeremy Boring's trying to say. Obviously.
And grow their brand.
That you then own.
Well, I own parts of it. I don't own it. They can, when their contract's up, they can still go out and they'll still be famous. They can keep doing their shows, so go do a show somewhere else. They'll be in a far, far, far better place. You helped make them.
No, not long as this contract. This contract owns it in perpetuity even after the contract. You're paying a lease but getting ownership.
Again, and this is where he doesn't rebut this. Jeremy Boring demonstrated how the first video was inaccurate, that it sounded like he was saying their work was owned in perpetuity even after they don't work for the Daily Wire anymore. Okay? Jeremy Boring then came back and said, no, like the work they produce through our production, we own what is produced while they're here, but then what they produce after they leave is theirs. Okay, you can say maybe, no, they should be allowed to take the previous work with them, and maybe they could negotiate that. Maybe you don't like that business model, but like, it's not, he gets corrected here.
That's what this contract reads.
On the content that we paid to produce, yes.
You know, look, I understand there are going to be differing opinions on this. I understand that.
Right.
As someone who does run a
That's
business.
kind of the point.
And has to 20, I think maybe 25 employees. I don't know. We're expanding. I understand people run businesses differently and have different priorities. Here's the thing. I would genuinely still, Daily Wire, Jeremy, love to sit down at the table and explain to you how you can make all of this work, how you can scale what we do and not have to be beholden to the people who we all go out and claim that we're fighting, and especially with all of the financial resources.
I'm sorry. He hasn't demonstrated he's qualified to instruct them in that way. I'm not convinced. I hope, like, again, I'm saying this. If you have any good faith interpretation of what Jeremy Boring is saying, he said he hopes Steven Crowder's right about that, but he's not willing to take the risk. Okay? You know, if Steven Crowder is right, I hope he proves Jeremy Boring wrong. He hasn't demonstrated why I should believe that's going to happen in this video.
That you have, which, by the way, are very impressive. And by the way, since fielding requests for people who've sent this in who you guys are under these kinds of contracts, right? You've sent in your emails. If you're looking to either join a network or looking to navigate these contracts, we've been flooded. I'm going to try and get to all of you. But here's the thing. Let me give you my word right now. My word. Everyone, you can timestamp it, call me on it. Here at Mug Club, we will never take any ownership over your social media platforms or your channels, and I don't want a dime ever of your YouTube revenue.
That's great. Awesome. Go make that business model work. I hope it does. Have you been in that position before and succeeded? I don't know. I don't think so. Whatever. I wish you success.
You make your own decision as to whether you want to be monetized or not. Some people want to, some people don't. I just have a problem with requiring that you do and penalizing you if you don't.
And you have not demonstrated why penalizing is an emotionally honest way to frame it.
To Daily Wire, to the rest of the people out there, give me a call. And
why should they? What incentive do they have to give you a call at this point? You going to record it again? Give it your worst faith reading? Sorry. Come on, man.
Let me put it this way. If you give me your word, this is all that matters here. Just give me your word that there will never be a clause in a contract again for some unsuspecting kid or someone who doesn't have the luxury to walk away from $50 million, as I did. True, guilty as charged.
That's what we call a humble brag, but whatever.
Give me your word that you will not penalize them 25% for demonetization, another 20% for a strike, another 20% for Facebook, Spotify, Apple, up to 80%. Just give me your word that that clause, that spirit will not be in any contract sent out to anyone else who's at the front lines fighting for this country, and we're done.
Why? What incentive do they have to give you that promise? Have you philosophically demonstrated the inferiority of their business model? Like, use what vocabulary you want. The He's simply reasserting the issue he has, which he's allowed to have. He's allowed to have this philosophical difference. But he hasn't demonstrated the superiority of his view on this. I'm sorry.
All of this stops right now. You will never hear from me again. I will go out and sing your praises. You can pick up the phone. You have my word. That's all it is. That's all this is about.
Great.
In the interim, to everyone else,
It's a nothing burger.
stopbigcon.com. Be a signatory. I'll see you Monday. Tim Pool.
That's right. He's going to be on Tim Pool. And as far as I can tell, Tim Pool's not as passionate about this as he is. All right. Tim Pool, he agrees this kind of contract is not right for Steven Crowder. Okay. He agrees with him insofar as that goes. But, Tim Pool's now got Candace Owens speaking in his ear in the live show. I'm going to go watch what she's got to say about it. I've got mixed feelings about her. I like some of the stuff she does, and other stuff I'm like, whatever. I have different opinions about all kinds of things, a variety of things on Daily Wire. But it'd be interesting because it's like, I'm really wondering how Monday's going to go when he goes on Tim Pool. I think Tim Pool will probably give him some pushback, which he should. And I don't think Steven Crowder is going to storm out like Kanye did. I hope it'll be a productive conversation. But I think this is an unnecessary riff now, potentially forming in the conservative movement. That's still my opinion. I gave my take probably way more than I even needed to with this live stream on what Steven Crowder's done here. Again, even in spite of all this, I hope for his success and the Daily Wire's success. At least insofar as they further my worldview. Again, I'm a Christian, and they're a little bit more. A lot of people in the Daily Wire claim to be Christians. Steven Crowder claims to be a Christian, but in some ways he doesn't demonstrate it in ways that I would like. But I'll leave it at that. I won't say too much about that. That's fine for now. Bigger topic for another time. Doesn't matter. That's not my main concern right now. Daily Wire is a mixed bag, and they kind of have this quasi-secular defensive conservatism that they do. And that has its place, I suppose, in that Christians can partner with it as, I mentioned this in another video, as co-belligerents, but ultimately we need to keep Christ at the center. And so the way in which we can, partner in our thinking or, promote outlets like the Daily Wire, there's a place for that, but it has its limitations when Christ is at our center. But that's a conversation I've already had on the channel. If you want to see that video, maybe I'll link it later if I can remember. But insofar as this controversy goes, ultimately, my mind wasn't changed from what I said last night. Insofar as who's in the right or who's in the wrong here, I think Jeremy Boring defended himself well, and I don't think Steven Crowder addressed his points. I really don't. That's how I feel right now. I hope they can work it out. And feel free to disagree. It's unfortunate now that it's kind of like battle lines have been drawn, and people now who are coming in who are Team Crowder, they feel obligated to think, to think that there's villains in this story. Ultimately, I don't think that's necessary. But anyways, like and subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll see you around in the next video. We have some topics picked out. I'm planning on doing my theology podcast with Caleb tomorrow at about 7:30, if all goes according to plan. And hope to see you there if it works out. So see you around next time. Thank you so much for watching.